they can now demonstrably prove, irrefutably, not just to them, to the world, they got America by the balls. They've got both straits closed. We held all the cards. Now our guys are begging for meetings. It was panic because they realized you had gone up against an adversary. You had grossly miscalculated. Now, what took them by surprise, they have the Liberation Day announcement on, I believe, April 2nd. A week later, they had to fold. Now, they didn't characterize it as folding. They characterized it as, we're going to pause the Liberation Day.
That's right, they paused it.
To give everybody a chance to come negotiate their more favorable.
Pause the tariff.
Pause the Liberation Day tariffs, except against China. Because it was always to cripple China. We're not going to pause them, but everybody else, we're going to pause. Now, why did they pause? Because in the aftermath of the Liberation Day tariffs, you had a unique event where you had a precipitous drop in the equity markets. S&P, Dow Jones, NASDAQ. Likewise, a drop in the value of the dollar. More importantly, foreign countries started dumping our bonds. And when you dump the bonds, the yield rises. It's an inverse relationship.
So this is a week or so after
7 days after initiating Liberation Day tariffs,
we start having all these bond issues.
We start having issues with our sovereign debt. Because remember, we have to refinance 8 to 10 trillion. Our interest rates shot up to 4.5. We backed up. We called it a pause. Now, what's nice about Trump, that's different about Trump than anybody else, is he goes off message. And whereas a White House with a little bit more disciplined messaging would stay on point, when he gets to freelancing,
He'll get off the beat. When he gets to freelancing, he gets off.
He'll actually tell you what happened.
The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions. Because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents. They wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history.
And so now, as you can just see with the president right there, he says clearly, the bond market got a little yippy.
Yippy.
Well,
which is him off course.
Which is him
freelancing.
Freelancing, and he's, so they asked
projecting.
Him, and now he actually reveals that it wasn't necessarily just a pause because we were magnanimous. The bond market got a little yippy. Well, our adversaries took note. The mighty American empire cannot withstand interest rates on their bonds and 10-year bond above 4.5. It's like being in a fight. If you're in the middle of a fight and you've got a broken rib, you don't want your adversary to know that. He's going to go to work on the body. You can't let your adversary know what's the break point. Well, everybody saw 4.5 on the 10-year. Well, it turns out that Achilles does have a vulnerability. The Death Star does have a vulnerability. In order for you to be able to bring the American government to fold, you have to be able to trigger a sovereign debt crisis. China was already prepared. Iran was already prepared. So after we initiate Liberation Day, a week later, we pause. Remember, Trump said, and when we put in the tariffs, anybody retaliates, we're going to double them. So at the top of the chart, 67% for China. China says, fuck you. We'll match you tariff for tariff. Now, the boys in Washington got, whoa, they got into their feelings. Like, how dare these guys think? Now, see, this is where they don't have street smarts. When you banking on your adversary to do something and they do the exact opposite, at that point, you got to back up because you've made a miscalculation. Why are they so confident? Because they knew what they had. Single point of failure. The law guys and the MBA guys and the Wall Street guys didn't realize the Chinese nerds with the engineering degrees had found the vulnerability. And so when they match us tariff for tariff, Trump doubles it. And he says, fuck it. We'll double it too. And then Trump says, we're going to decouple from your economy. They said, fine, we'll decouple too. We're going to put export controls on you. Ba-boom. They played their trump card. They control the production of rare earth metals and magnets. American industrial capacity requires these critical inputs from China.
Auto manufacturing, bomb manufacturing.
As soon as they played that card, within literally a short period, I'm talking like within a couple of weeks, Ford has to start idling plants. The Ford CEO comes to Washington. Sir, we can't build trucks unless we get these critical inputs from China. All Ford employees are going to be off work. Here comes the CEO from GM. Sir, we can't build cars. Here comes the CEO for Boeing. We can't build planes.
Here comes Raytheon.
Raytheon. Lockheed Martin. You can't build submarines. You can't build F-35s. You can't build missiles. You can't build cars. You can't build computer chips. That's a single point of failure.
So that's when China went, bam, motherfucker.
You want to play? We've been waiting for this.
Since
you walked
18.
right into our trap. And this is how you know that Trump is being advised by people who don't understand and lack street smarts, is because you don't start a fight with somebody who's in a position to cripple you. Like if you and your neighbor dislike each other, heated, contentious relationship. Well, if you come home one evening and as you're making your way to the front door, you see your neighbor out front and he's drunk as fuck and he's holding a shotgun, that's not the time to provoke him.
No, no.
Well, when our leadership advised the president, just like Biden made mistakes because he was poorly advised.
Sure.
You know, the heck of a job Biden instances. Same thing with Trump. Because he's led to believe no one would dare retaliate. So when they put the Liberation Day tariffs, China retaliates, tariff for tariff, decoupling, export control. Once the CEOs say, hey, look, we're going to have massive unemployment because we have to idle all the plants. Well, we know what happens when you have massive unemployment. What happened during the pandemic? What happened during the Great Financial Crisis? In the Great Financial Crisis, you had a spike in unemployment. When you have a spike in unemployment, what that does is those people are no longer able to work. They can't make their mortgage payments. They can't make their car payments. They can't make their credit card payments. So by restricting the critical inputs, China's going to do what? Trigger a banking crisis. When you trigger a banking crisis, the Fed's got to step in and start printing fucking money. When you start printing money, what's it going to do? Spike inflation. You spike inflation, what happens? Foreign bondholders do what? Dump the bonds. They can trigger a sovereign debt crisis simply by withholding the critical inputs.
So they withhold their precious metals and their magnets, and it's an absolute avalanche. Of a
so we go from
shitstorm.
being we held all the cards to now our guys are begging for meetings. Literally, like our Treasury Department guys crashed a meeting between the Chinese and another European country. Like, please just give us a minute, sir. Give us a minute.
Well, yeah, I forget.
Of course,
it was.
they didn't portray it that way, of course.
No,
but in reality,
that's what happened.
It was panic because they realized you had gone up against an adversary. You had grossly miscalculated. And so if your plan was to cripple to create leverage over them, to force them to come back within the dollar-denominated financial order, strangle the fucking Chinese currency maneuvers you guys are doing, it blew up. They can now demonstrably prove, irrefutably, not just to them, to the world, they got America by the balls.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, they do.
So then we caved. That was in May of 25. They didn't characterize it as a cave. We caved. We had a meeting in October in Korea. Trump flies to Korea. Now, in between these two circumstances, after entering into the deal in May, we double cross him.
China?
We try to pull another stunt where at the last minute, we add a bunch of Chinese companies to a list of companies that aren't allowed to do business with American entities. So now China's like, okay, you know what? We are not only going to embargo the rare earths to the United States, we are putting in a new licensing mechanism. Every country in the world, for them to buy our rare earths, now keep in mind, for you to build Patriot missiles, you need Chinese rare earths. 80% of the weapon systems in the American military cannot be built without Chinese rare earths. Gallium is a critical metal used in the production of some of these systems. China produces 99% of it.
Of the gallium.
You can't build. So how do you start a fight with the guy when you know
that this guy controls the production of your military instruments?
That's how you know that the president's being misadvised. Whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden.
Well, he obviously knows all this shit now, right?
Well, he learned afterwards.
Yeah,
they got religion. That's when they got religion. And so then Trump actually, so this is like
October 25.
October 25. So they pulled this stunt in the summer. Now the Chinese put in this new export licensing regime. They say any company, so any rare earth that has dual purposes can't go to America at all. In fact, we're not even selling it to none of America's allies. Because we don't trust that you're going to give it to them.
Right.
Because that's what we did with the chips. You can't get the state-of-the-art computer chips? They said, fine, we won't give you the state-of-the-art rare earths. Meanwhile, they put a ton of money since 18, to developing their own chip production capacity. This is another one of the blow-ups in a minute. And so now we're saying, okay, fine, well, we'll make a deal with you. Remember in October 25, Trump even said, you know what? We entered into the deal. They're going to sell us the rare earths. We're going to sell them the state-of-the-art chips. The whole thing was to stop them from getting the chips. Now he's like, you know what? Give them the chips.
Yeah, no problem. That's when they started out.
So now you know who has the leverage.
Right.
You start the fight, and you end up giving them what they want. So now things go very poorly for us in this circumstance right here.
The next
October 25. And
October
so
25.
we essentially fold on the trade war with respect to China. Everybody else, we won. UK rolled over. Europe rolled over. Sure, we've had a little bit of contentions with Canada. Yeah, things got a little dicey with India, but nobody bucked the way China did because China was waiting and had the trap.
And they've been setting that trap since 18.
They've been setting that trap since 18.
Because when we fucked them over in 18.
When we sucker punched them in 18.
So
November, the Trump administration releases their new defense strategy, which is where essentially they characterize it as the Don Roe Doctrine. And what it means is essentially Trump has stated unequivocally, we control the Western Hemisphere. All commerce conducted by a country in the Western Hemisphere will be done in a manner consistent with U.S. national security interests. Now, right during this time period, they start bombing the boats in Venezuela. These bad narcos in Venezuela.
Bad drug guys.
Now, yes, Venezuela is creating, this begins in the summer of 25. And I go on numerous other podcasts, and they're like, what are they doing? They're setting them up. Nothing to do with fucking drugs. They're setting them up. Now, he can had Maduro came out and said, you know what? We're going to price all our oil sales to China in dollar-denominated transactions. Trump would have welcomed Venezuela back into the community of nations.
Yep. That would have controlled the guy's destiny. He would have been a puppet.
He'd have been, you're on Team USA. We don't care about the drug trafficking.
Trade your oil in dollars. We're good.
We're good. Flood China with
trade
oil.
your oil in Chinese. We're going to replace you.
You're going to get.
I mean, pretty much that. It's kind of much that simple.
That's right. That's right.
Trade your oil and U.S. dollars. You're good.
This is why the circumstance in October of 25 is the event that is, well, they use the term material. It's the event of such significance that it changes everything going forward. We had lost a trade war after we had tried to strangle a country to leverage them to follow what we want, and it turns out that they, at any given time, can cripple us. So now we go into panic mode.
So was that Liberation Day, Pete, one of the biggest fuck-ups we've ever...
Only with respect to how it was handled with China.
Right, I know, but inevitably...
Oh, everybody else? No, it was great.
No, but I'm saying China is... They own us. We're their bitch. And we poked them in the fucking chest.
Here's the thing. If you're going to get into a fight with them, I'm not saying that their goal of doing this isn't right. Like, the last thing I want to see is a Chinese currency because it's going to destroy our economy. But if you're going to start a fight with them, then you have to, on the front end, spend a year stockpiling all of the critical minerals, because in the event you do get into a fight and they don't back down,
you got a stockpile of this shit.
You have to obviate their threat because they have a single point of failure. You have to neutralize that threat. Well, we went into it with hubris. They would never dare retaliate. It's the guy who's never been in a fight.
The Yale grad.
The Yale guy, the Harvard Law School guy. How many serious fights has he been in his life?
None.
How many knife fights? How many gun fights? None. Well, he's assuming they wouldn't dare punch back. Look, this isn't a debating society at Yale. This is an existential challenge to something that is, for them, the basis of their economy survival. Our economy is a survival. Like, this is not a game.
Oh, this is real world shit.
This is the exercise of power at the first level. Like, this is first order business. This is the winner of this
wins.
Dominates.
Wins. And the loser of this loses.
The loser of this becomes the other one's vassal, and you're going to be supporting the very mechanism that's used. And so for us, we had it for 50 years, then it's losing, and we got to force them back. Well, once we lost the war with the trade war with China, it didn't mean our guys stopped. They just had to come up with an alternate plan. So instead of taking on China directly, let's attack them indirectly by knocking out the legs from their three pillars.
Iran,
Venezuela, and Russia.
So that's why we continue the war in Ukraine.
Well, no. So now, this is in November, they announced a new strategy. In December, there was an event that takes place that hasn't been really reported a lot in the United States.
And well, most of what you've been saying has not been reported. That's why it's so fucking brilliant.
Okay, and so the U.S. maintained this fiction that we're going to try to help the Russians and Ukrainians. We're going to resolve this thing. We're going to be the neutral arbitrators. In fact, we had a meeting in Anchorage, Alaska. Well, first of all, we're the ones shooting the missiles. Like, the Russians know.
We could stop this real easy by just stop shooting the fucking missiles.
So, like, you're going to persuade Zelensky, well, look, just take our guys out.
Or stop sending them shit.
So you were maintaining this fiction that we're trying to help the two parties, when in reality, Ukraine is a proxy war. Now, up until October 25, it was just essentially greed. We want to break up Russia. We want to either get them to sell their oil in dollars, or better yet, even break up the country and we can loot it. After October 25, it now became part of Team China. We have to decapitate
one of the three legs.
The Russian leadership.
One of the three legs, right?
Yes.
It's one of the big ones.
Trump had been having these conversations with Putin throughout the summer and autumn with respect to the Anchorage discussion. In December, the Trump administration made arrangements to have December 25 to have a conversation with Putin. And Putin was supposed to be at one of his alternate residences. Now, Russia is at war with Ukraine. So the movement of the Russian leadership, just like the movement of the Ukrainian leadership, is top
Constantly
secret.
changing.
Constantly changing and confidential. Well, there was supposed to be a scheduled phone call between Trump and Putin, and it was scheduled for Putin to call Trump at a residence in Valdai, which is a city in Russia. The Americans knew where Putin was going to be at that day. At 2 o'clock, there's going to be a call.
Don't tell me we fucking double-crossed him.
Somehow, drones from Ukraine.
Why don't we know about this?
Came because the American government has denied that they were involved in this attack. Drones from Ukraine just happened to come to the Valdai residence. Now, they didn't hit because you had
anti-Russian missiles.
So they were able to shoot down the drones.
But drones were coming.
The Russians recovered the drones. They accessed the information. The information had to come from the Americans. How'd they know the Ukrainians knew where Putin was going to be at? So now the Russians bring that information to the Americans, the CIA, and the State Department said, hey,
what about this shit?
You guys trying to hit Putin? That's not us. No. No, it was just a drone attack. That was the first of the decapitation strikes.
That was the first attempt.
They missed.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so now in October, we lose.
Pete, this is mind-blowing.
In October, we lose the trade war.
Right.
We activate the Bravo plan, because Alpha didn't work. Phase 1, decapitate Putin. Use our proxies to do it. We didn't do it. The problem is they knew where to hit the guy at. That came from you. Because only you guys knew where he was supposed to be at.
So we got Russia at 1.
So we we put our puppets.
Was Russia still mad as fuck about this?
Oh, Russia don't we reserve the right.
We got one coming, right?
We already owe you for the missiles. Now you're trying to decapitate. That's the game we're playing? All right, fellas.
And Putin's a bad motherfucker, isn't he?
He's, KGB. But,
Yeah,
the
saying,
American, the Russian
he's
version.
He's probably more trained than Trump.
Not at building golf courses.
Well, no, but I'm talking about fucking warfare.
And making sure that, the brakes on people's cars go out.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. Putin's very talented. A few weeks later, decapitation strike number 2. Boom.
Venezuela.
They go into Venezuela.
We get that one.
Now, that was a success. Now, it wasn't the military success it's been characterized because we bribed everybody. And what's interesting is like in the run-up, and this is how you know it had nothing to do with drugs, because in the run-up to the operation to capture Maduro, there was a lot of public posturing by the U.S. government that that's not the legally recognized government, because we don't recognize the Maduro regime as legitimate. There was an election, and we're claiming that another person, a woman named Machado, won the election. And they're saying that Maduro stole it. So he was illegitimately in power. That's why we can go into the country and we claim it's not an act of war. Because if you invade another country,
it's an act of war.
To kidnap the president, it's an act of war. Now, to the rest of the world, this is bullshit because the rest of the world, most of the presidents aren't legitimate.
Right, including ours. I mean,
the guy in Saudi Arabia hasn't been elected. The guy in Kuwait hasn't been elected. There's a lot of illegitimate leaders.
And currently in our country, we're fighting over the 2020 election.
Well, I mean,
I'm just saying, that's common.
The legitimacy of a president doesn't turn on, whether he's the leader of the country doesn't turn on whether or not he was democratically elected.
Correct.
And so the rest of the world knows, okay, you're full of shit. You're using the drugs as a pretext. Because now, what if China says, you know what? We're going to go kidnap the Taiwan president. He wants to go for deliberation. We're gonna call him a T word and a drug dealer. We wouldn't accept that.
No.
So now watch. China, of course, knows what's going on. You just took a decapitation strike at Russia. The Russians told the Chinese, you're not gonna believe what these fucking Americans did.
Right. Correct.
They tried to set up fucking Putin.
Yeah.
And we shot down the drones. And then when we gave the information to the Americans, they got the drones. Here you go.
Yeah.
Here's
your drones back.
Yeah. And here's that intel you got in there. That came from you.
That where our guy was going to be at what particular time because your motherfucker.
No. Okay, yeah, no problem. Big misunderstanding. So then they, of course, let the Chinese know, hey, this is what they're doing. Then you go and you snatch up Maduro.
What do we do with him?
He's still in jail. He's waiting trial. And this is how you know it had nothing to do with drug trafficking because they snatch up Maduro, but they don't install Machado, the one that we claimed was democratically elected. No.
They put Maduro's vice in there.
They want the vice president in there.
The woman.
The woman who was actually the one behind the drug trafficking. Maduro's the president of the country. He doesn't meet with narcos. But you need someone who's a representative of the country who has the stature and the authority to speak on behalf of that. We'll let your loads come through. We're going to want this much. Give us $300 per kilo. Whatever the arrangement was.
Much like Mexico.
Well, exactly like
Same
Mexico.
template.
Same. Venezuela took the Mexican model. And these meetings would take place in either the Mexican, like the cartel guys going to Venezuela, or they all meet for, a little holiday in Cuba. And so there's actually the majority of the DEA reporting on the Venezuelan drug activity, for which there was a lot. I mean, it was substantial. The woman that's in power today, Delcy Rodriguez, she was the point person. So we removed Maduro and put in the real drug trafficker because we got leverage over her.
And she'll do what we want.
Because she can easily be indicted. And if she doesn't do what we say, Delta forces come snatch her up, put her in the cell next to her buddy Maduro. So as soon as she takes office, what does she do? She says, I'm going to start selling all our oil in American dollars. Wow.
Oh, amazing how that all went down.
And we agree, because here's the thing. The oil-producing countries of the world are the countries that have surpluses. Like we run deficits. Most countries run deficits. Well, the countries that have surpluses are the countries that are producing the commodities. And so the three largest oil-producing countries outside of the dollar-denominated system were Russia, Venezuela, and Iran. These were China's bedrock.
Of their new financial
Of their parallel financial architecture. Well, now you take out Venezuela, and they agree to start pricing it in dollars. Trump, the day after they snatched up Maduro, he gives a famous speech where he says, look, I'm not trying to harm China. We're not going to deprive China of the oil. We want China to buy more oil. We want to pay for all. We want China to buy all the oil from Venezuela because it's in U.S. dollars, because that means China's going to have to stockpile all their money in U.S. Treasury bonds. So you knock out the Venezuela peg and you offer to sell them, hey, we're going to sell you all the oil you want. You're just going to pay for them in dollars. They didn't say to pay for them in dollars part.
So, like you said, it was a 4-part system.
So the first one is Russia.
Which we didn't know about till you sneaked that one on me last minute, Pete.
Yeah, I didn't want to tell you about it.
Man, you can't. Yeah, I knew 2 and 3. 2's Venezuela.
2 is Venezuela.
3 is what we're going through right now, which we're going to get more into.
We're about to get to right now. So now you've got the second one, of course, with Venezuela. Successful. We put in the sock puppet.
We're trading their oil in dollars.
Yeah, and they're keeping their surplus. They're running all their money through the United States. We're actually holding their money in custody. So their oil gets sold. We hold the money. Then they come to us and say, hey, can we get money for hospitals? Can we get money for roads?
Oh, we're doing that?
Yeah, man.
Bullshit.
Yeah, we claimed it all. We've claimed, look.
That's not legal, is it?
We are no longer following the rules-based international order. We are now mafia-style economics.
Okay.
And so now the United States, of course, is today we now possess the world's largest, allegedly the world's largest known proven oil reserves. We keep it parked in the American colony, formerly known as the government or the country of Venezuela. That's now our country. We own it.
That's pretty much us.
That's us.
Now, is that going to change with the new administration, or you think that's going to...
No, because in fact,
the
woman that won the presidency, Machado, she keeps trying to get into the country. We're blocking her.
Oh.
We don't want her in there. We don't want the damn do-gooder going in there wrecking our action. We got it good with Rodriguez. She's our girl in Caracas. We don't care if she's a narco.
Yeah, stay the fuck out of there.
They get out of there. You got this one. She wants to start getting into it because if she gets into the country, then we have to return their assets. We have to relinquish control of their oil. No. So, keep the drug dealer in there. Because what's more important is that we keep them within our system and give us access to all that oil and all that money.
And so we'll probably keep her in office forever.
Until someone else comes along and done something stupid. Maduro gets knocked off in January.
Yep.
Here comes the guy from Israel. Netanyahu.
Bibi Netanyahu.
Now, look. And it's been publicly reported. In fact, I believe Bibi himself has publicly indicated, and we know from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State John Kerry, we know from political figures in the United States across both sides of the aisle for 30 plus years, every year this man comes to the United States. And every year he asks us to attack Iran.
Bibi.
Every year. Now, the summer before we did the Maduro operation, Bibi went and started bombing Iran, like he does all the time. They do this silliness over there. They call it mowing the lawn.
That we don't have anything to do with until recently.
But on this one, we went along with it. You know what? We're going to put an end to this bullshit with the nuclear program. We're going to bomb the installation. So our B-2 bombers go over there. They drop the bunking buster bombs. And according to Mr. Trump, we obliterated it. Set it back decades. It's not an issue. So going into January of 26, the Iran nuclear issue is off the table. Bibi comes and says we need to bomb them because his pretext has been the nuclear program, but it's been obliterated. Just like we use the drug trafficking to gin up excuses to go into Venezuela, he's using the nuclear program, but we've already destroyed it. So he's coming and saying, well, they're reconstituting it. It's going to be ready in 2 weeks. Well, we already knew that was bullshit. This man has been saying the same damn thing for 30 fucking years. Why did we go along with attacking him now as opposed to 2 years ago?
Or 4 years ago.
Or 4 years ago. Or during Trump's first term. Well, we didn't do so because for the first time, we had lost a trade war and we were vulnerable. China had demonstrated they could cripple our economy. We had to break the pillars underlying Chinese financial architecture. Now, of course, the Americans know, hey, Bibi's coming. What's he going to say? Yeah, this fucking jackass is going to ask to go to war again. Mm-hmm. Well, we knew he was going to ask for it. This time we said, you know what, Bibi?
We're going to help you.
We'll do it. You take the lead. That's how you know they set up Bibi. He thinks he's manipulating us. Trump played this guy.
So Bibi thinks he's finally getting what he wanted.
Finally, for 30 years, I've been trying to persuade him.
To let them know that these motherfuckers got uranium enriched.
Whatever the hell bullshit is, you know what, Bibi, you're right. Because Bibi's saying we're going to do regime change because they want to do regime change.
Yeah, Bibi wants that.
Or to break up the country. Our model with Russia, they want to do it with Iran.
So Bibi thinks we're rolling in there.
To help him.
To help him.
When we knew he was going to come in and ask him and say, you know what, tell this jackass we'll go along with it this time.
But really, we need them to trade their oil in U.S. dollars.
So we need to put a sock puppet in there.
Right.
So that means
they're not going to go.
We need to have.
They're on the Chinese system now.
They're on Team China, so we need to decapitate them. Well, we didn't take a shot at Ukraine, at Russia. We had our sock puppets in Ukraine do it. So now we tell the sock puppets in Israel, we'll back you up, but you take out the decapitation strikes. And so on February 28th, they have the little sham negotiations in the run-up to it. We're in the middle of negotiations, acting like we're interested. On February 28th, we hit them with the Pearl Harbor. In the middle of negotiations, we surprise attack them.
Oh, so February 28th wasn't in, we were negotiating a good faith with them, right?
There was never any good faith negotiations.
Well, we were negotiating with them.
We're just negotiating to get them to lull themselves into a false sense of security. And so they actually offered, according to the diplomats involved in those negotiations, they offered to dismantle the entire enrichment program. That's how you know it had nothing to do with nuclear. They said, okay, we'll just stop enriching entirely. It still wasn't good enough. Because our goal was never to stop enrichment. We had to decapitate that government and install a sock puppet because we had to get them out of Team China to get them back within the dollar-denominated financial order.
That's
the difference
really
between 25 and the previous 30 years. Every year Netanyahu asked for this. Every year we turned the guy down. It's only after we lost the trade war with China and now we had to go with Plan B.
Well, and they flipped from U.S. dollar to the China instrument.
Well, yes. And so yes. And so we knew he was going to come ask us, and we said, you know what, we'll do it this time. You take the lead. And you know that for two reasons. One, because it was the Israelis that killed the supreme leader, Khamenei. They're the ones that they did the initial bombing run. They came in first. So they killed the supreme leader, about 40 of the government's leaders. Like some of the cabinet level officers.
Those were all Israel-based, supposedly.
Yeah, no, they admitted they did it. They were not supposed. They initiated the strike, and they took out some of the leadership. Not all of it, of course. And, of course, you had the Mosaic defense, so you had the 31 independent provinces anyway.
Which they were ready for.
Our boys just like we got outplayed by the Chinese engineers, now we're about to walk into the trap. Because remember, Iran's been preparing for this for 23 years. So the Israelis come in, bomb, decapitation strike. Our Secretary of State, Rubio, House Speaker Mike Johnson, they come in and play it off like, well, we had no choice to go in there because the Israelis were going to take the lead, and we knew that if they bombed them, the Iranians are going to counterstrike us, so we had to follow Israel. Do you think a country of 9 million people can force us to do something we don't want to do? If we didn't want them to do it, Trump would just tell them, stand down. He's had no problem telling them to stand down before. In the middle of this war, when Netanyahu bombed one of the Iranian oil facilities, Trump came on TV and said, whoa, we had nothing to do with that. I'm ordering Netanyahu to stand down. He stand down. He stood down. We didn't tell him to stand down because we wanted him to do it. Now, he's thinking he's manipulating us. In reality, we're like, oh, yeah, you know what? We're going to help you out this time. We really care about your peoples. We care about your country's survival. Netanyahu just got tricked out. He takes the lead. They unalive a bunch of the leadership. Our Secretary of State comes out and immediately puts it on them.
On Israel.
On Israel. We had to follow them in. They told us at the last minute. You don't think they would clear that with us months earlier? We just found out a couple of days earlier. You guys knew the whole fucking time they were doing it. We were negotiating in bad faith. But we wanted to maintain the pretense. We had to follow them in because these are the guys that took the lead. China knows what's going on. Russia knows what's going on. Iran knows what's going on. So when they hit, boom, 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 boom. Remember, first day, devastating decapitation strikes. Caught them, total sucker punch. Operation was a massive success. Lulled them into a false sense of security. Crushed them.
But didn't get them all.
It's supposed to be a 4-day, 96-hour air campaign. They had miscalculated. One, they didn't understand their adversary. Yes, in the past, Iran didn't retaliate because their leaders, we had never attacked their leadership. You blew up a base. Maybe you unalived some scientists. But now you're putting the regime up against the wall, and they know it's got nothing to do with the nuclear dust because they offered to give it all to you, and you turned it down, and you bombed. So it's a regime change. Yes, it's a regime change operation. You're trying to remove us So when you put your adversary up against the wall,
you wanted your own sock puppet in there.
You want to no, because a few days later, well, first of all, they put the adversary up against the wall with nothing left to lose. And as you've gotten older, I've gotten older in life, one thing men should know by the time, you're a little bit of lived experience, never put someone up against the wall without a way out.
Especially somebody who has nothing to lose.
Especially somebody who has nothing to lose. And they have engineers that have identified single points of failure. They weren't standing there just holding their dick asking for a favor or something. Like, no, pal. They were shocked at the beginning.
They weren't a bunch of goat herders from Afghanistan.
Well, the goat herders from Afghanistan were still able to outsmart the Harvard guys fighting in the mountains. But these guys took it to an entirely different level. So then when we do the decapitation strike, they're in full shock mode. Like they know, oh shit, this is what we've been planning for. Mm-hmm. Activate the doomsday scenario, essentially. Well, two things happen. Trump comes out publicly and says the only thing he's going to accept is unconditional surrender. And he said he's going to pick the next Iranian president. He's going to select the supreme leader. And he says the son of the old one, he's not acceptable to me. So he confirms it's a regime change operation. Iran's got nothing left to lose. We had miscalculated the nature of the adversary. But more importantly, not only was it an existential fight for Iran, but it's also an existential fight for Russia and China.
That's the bigger picture.
And we failed to appreciate the nature of the relationship between them. Because the moment we start doing, remember, day one, bombing, day two, bombing, it's just bombing. Then all of a sudden, a few days into it, boom, they start retaliating.
Kind of caught us by surprise a little bit, didn't it?
Well, they were able to reach out to their friends. Ivan showed up. Remember, Americans, we told you?
Oh, you got one coming?
We reserve the right to respond. We owe you. All them American missiles going into Moscow? So the Russians
trying to take out Putin?
Not just drone? For 2 years, they've been firing rockets into fucking Russia at this point. Civilian infrastructure, schools getting blown up. We don't hear the reporting in the United States. It's Ukrainians are engaging in a very dishonorable form of warfare because they're desperate. And so the Russians show up. They tell their buddy, hey, Ali, step aside. Ivan's here. We're going to go hunting wabbits. And so now you've got Iranian missiles built with Russian technology. And just like we have American civilian contractors
in Ukraine,
you've got Russian civilian contractors in Iran. And so when the Russians and the Iranians say, well, we need state-of-the-art updated information. So the Russian picks up the phone and he calls his buddy in Shanghai. Hey, Wang Yi, Ivan here. I'm helping Ali. We're hunting wabbits. Give us the coordinates on all the targeting information we need. Well, you got this base over here, this base over here. You got the Chinese satellites. Next thing you know, boom, 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 boom. They start blowing up our fucking bases. This is how you knew they totally miscalculated the adversary. There wasn't any defense capability around our bases. There was one video where it's like these drones, you could see it coming in and you can hear it's like the high-pitched sound. It's like a fucking lawnmower engine strapped to it. Blows up one of our buildings. You could have fucking kids out with shotguns.
Right.
Like they're hunting pheasants or something. Like, what? How are these getting through?
It's because we didn't anticipate the fight back.
They didn't expect them to fight back. It's the guys from Harvard Law School. They wouldn't dare retaliate. Hell, if you unalive another man's daughters, he'll decapitate your mother and feed her to you.
Absolutely.
What the hell is wrong with you? You think that, and this is what the nonsense our president, I'm not excusing Trump, but he wasn't told you're fighting Russia, China, and Iran.
Because that's what you are.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because they know what we're doing. Because they know we took the shot at Russia. They know we took Maduro. And we know it's a decapitation strike against Iran. It's all hands on deck for them.
And we fucked with China in 18.
Oh, and the year before, we had the trade war with them, and they knew that didn't work, so this is how they're responding. We went on the trade war. You guys don't stop. You just come at us a different way. So they're going to repay the favor. The Russians are going to repay the favor.
Well, we got two of the most powerful countries that are using Iran as their proxy.
Well, here's the problem. So,
right?
Yes, because now they're using Iran as their proxy, but the Iranian engineers, they identified the single points of failure. The first is the Strait of Hormuz. The reason why the Strait of Hormuz is a weapon is because it controls approximately 25% of the world's energy, an enormous amount of the world's oil, and more importantly, an enormous amount of what's called the middle distillates. This is gasoline. This is kerosene used for jet fuel. Well, they're not allowing any of that to leave. Also, like urea with respect to fertilizers, sulfur, helium. You can't make computer chips without helium. Qatar's the second largest producer of helium in the world. And so these Middle Eastern countries, these Gulf Arab countries, you've got literally thousands of ships trapped in the Gulf, in the Persian Gulf. They can't leave. Well, the American economy requires the movement of money. If there's no economic activity, there's no money cycling through the Ponzi. So by closing off the strait, they're cutting off the financing. Now the American government is like, whoa, hold on a second. They're doing the same thing the Chinese are doing. They're attacking the sovereign debt market. You cause a spike in the price of oil, you're going to cause a spike in the price of inflation. As inflation goes up, it's going to impact gross domestic product. You're going to have less economic activity. You're going to blow out debt to GDP. You're going to turn around and have foreign bondholders start dumping the bonds. Yields are going to shoot up. Sovereign debt market.
Back to that.
Well, they found the Death Star's vulnerability. So now they weaponize the Gulf. Any ships coming through, they put missiles in them. So now for 40 days, we're bombing them. We bombed the living hell out of these guys for 40 fucking days to get back the strait. We couldn't take it. So then we enter into this, well, we're going to put in place, what do they call it? The blockade.
Right, the naval blockade.
Because the first step because initially it was decapitation strike, we're going to put in the new president, Trump's going to select everybody. Once that didn't work, then our guys realized, whoa, holy shit, we're vulnerable. Like, we're into this thing. They can cripple our fucking economy. Because they can take the critical input we need for our markets. Money. Most important. Secondly, not only is it reducing the gross domestic product, putting all that at risk, you also have the fact that those Arab countries, they generate billions of dollars in surplus. Well, all that money gets invested in our markets. So now, remember, the Saudis are going to put $1 trillion in. They're going to build data centers. All this bullshit they were going to build, they're not making any of that money.
Okay, they can't invest it if they're not making it.
They're not making it. So now all the money that comes in from the oil producers isn't coming into the American Ponzi. All the money that's being used by other countries to buy, well, they got to start getting money for Russian oil. Well, Russia doesn't take dollars.
That's right. They're part of the new Chinese financial
So now
system.
you got to go buy gold, take it to China, trade it for Chinese yuan. So now the very thing we're trying to do, we incentivize the opposite. You're strengthening China's system. And unless we get Iran to give up that strait, we're not going to be able to stop that.
So
now that's the first of the.
That's the first.
That's the first.
We got two more.
Well, okay. Well, here's the thing. You had the 40 days of bombing, had the blockade. We entered a memorandum of understanding. 18 days later, we double cross it. We breached the memorandum of understanding.
But we blame it on them.
Well, yeah, of course, we blame it on them.
Sure.
That's
the first I've heard that we've actually.
Yeah, of course, we double crossed it. And so, because if you look at first of all, the agreement was, first paragraph, Israel has to get out of Lebanon. We assured them that we were going to protect Lebanon's territorial integrity and their sovereignty. They never followed that. As soon as we signed the deal, Israel started bombing more.
Yeah, so that's done.
So then the fifth clause is that we agree that for 60 days, like the Iran's going to be responsible for administering the strait and that we agree for 60 days they're not going to charge a fee. Not that they're never going to charge a fee. For 60 days, they're not going to charge a fee. Well, that means on day 61,
they can start charging
fees. So we start running boats out. And now keep in mind, everybody's loading up at this point because Iran is taking all their boats, filling them up, sending them to China. But the Iranians are smart. They fill up the boats, take them out of the Gulf, take it through the Strait, take it to the port of out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, rendezvous with their Chinese ships, and transfer them at sea, and then go back and double up. They're flooding the market to China with oil because China is restocking. See, as they're holding the Strait, attacking our markets, the device they're using is the sovereign debt market. But what the panic is that the availability of oil is decreasing. Like no boats are coming out of the Strait. Now, Saudi Arabia has a second escape valve over on the other side with the Red Sea going through Yanbu. We're about to talk about that one in a minute. But for right now, other than that Yanbu relief valve, we've gone from 20 million barrels of oil coming out a day to just a few million a week.
Really?
So now, in order to keep that cushion in place, because we don't want the price of oil to skyrocket.
Like it is.
Well, in reality, it has. See, here in the United States, the government's manipulating the paper markets, the future market. Well, if you're in Malaysia or in Singapore and you're buying oil, you're paying $140 a barrel to get that off the boat. On paper, when you watch on television, it's under $80 a barrel. That's a future contract. You're going to receive it in 3 months at $80 a barrel.
Today's
price is $140.
Right.
And so to cushion that differential, the U.S. has what's called a strategic petroleum reserve. So we have, this huge stockpile of oil that we have just in case of an emergency. So we've been literally pumping out our oil from the reserve to keep our prices from exploding.
Even though they have exploded somewhat.
Well, we've been able to keep it under control because we have a large reserve, and we've been helping our allies. Well, the problem is, and this is what the engineers knew.
The Iranian
engineers knew that, okay, well, you guys are going to run out of oil in about mid-August. Their goal was to fight to mid-August. They were prepared to fight for 2 years.
But they had to get to mid-August for us
to mid-August, they start having an oil crisis.
Well, we're there, Pete. So are you saying we're going to have?
We're almost there right now. So they said, okay, look, if you guys want to give us a memorandum of understanding, we'll go along with that. Because now they're going to re-up their money, help their buddies in China, who, by the way, are supplying them with the fuel for the rockets, supplying them with the intel.
China's probably killing it.
They're flooding in supplies.
I mean, their economy's probably better than it ever has been.
They're flooding in supplies. The Russians are bringing in stuff through the Caspian Sea. It's just massive support for Iran at this point. Now, for whatever reason, our politicians are pretending, oh, no, Russia's not involved. China's not involved. Well, just recently, there was a big publication in the New York Times talking about how shortly after the war began, the American government was shocked because they were able to destroy like 15 bases. We had 15 bases destroyed. Our guys were leaving the bases, taking up positions in hotels in Dubai, and then the Iranians are bombing the fucking hotels because they knew the Americans were there. They weren't targeting civilian hotels. They were targeting the civilian hotels where the Americans were staying at after they fled the bases.
They were targeting Americans.
Oh, yeah, of course. And so now the Times revealed that in addition to their ability to destroy bases, which caught us completely by surprise, they even knew the location of a secret CIA facility that they put a fucking rocket into. And that's when they're like, okay, they're being helped.
By China. I mean,
China and Russia.
And Russia. Absolutely. They wouldn't have known that.
But they didn't want to play that card. So now, it wasn't, that's not too fact. It was at I think it was like the NATO summit, some event that G7 just happened recently, where Rubio spoke with Lavrov and demanded to know, are you guys helping the Iranians? Like, what? And of course, the Russians are like, no, we're men of peace. We're here to be an honest broker to help craft a settlement. Like, why would you ask them that question? No, you already know the answer to the question. My grandfather used to always say, never ask a question you already know the answer to. You know the answer. And so that's like a snapshot. Like, our guys are panicking And they're asking a question that they already know what the answer is. Like, that's insanity, pal. You're making,
So where do we go from here?
Well, the problem is,
like modern day, where we.
So now here we go. So they destroy all the bases around the Persian Gulf. Then they start moving because one of their demands is you're going to leave the Middle East. So they blow up the bases in Qatar. They blow up the bases in Abu Dhabi. They blow up the bases in UAE.
They blow up
Iran.
ours.
Yeah.
Iran's blowing up ours.
Yeah. We have like 15 to 20 bases that are either completely destroyed or non-serviceable at this point. So you got the war for 40 days, blockade, MOU. 18 days later, we double-cross. Iran's like, you're double-crossing. Your word's no good. You already broke the deal in 18 with the previous nuclear agreement. Now you're breaking this deal now. Stop doing your dumb shit because we were trying to sneak ships out. So they start firing into the ships. Because we have to get that oil out. They're restricting. They're saying, hey, we control the strait. We're not going to charge for 60 days, but they're restricting the movement. They're not allowing 130 because it's not in their interest to let everybody top off their reserves. So they're slow walking them while tripling theirs. Their boats are going to China. Chinese boats are coming in. They sold a shit ton of fucking oil. And so we, of course, were not happy. And of course, we had no intention of ever following this deal anyway. And then later on, subsequently, we've had leaders come forward and say, yeah, we entered into that just to, get a little bit of breathing room. In fact, after we signed the MOU, when Trump was questioned, here's another instance of him actually telling the truth, which he goes off script. And so when he was asked, like, sir, you entered into that agreement. I think it was on June 17th. And he said, I had to sign that agreement to get the oil flowing because I do not want to be a president that's responsible for a depression.
I always said, I don't want to be a president with a depression on his resume. I don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
Unguarded moment of candor.
Is he freaking out, you think?
Oh, he's in full panic mode. If you read the reports, he's screaming, yelling, he's going nuts at his advisors. How'd you get me into this situation?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, no, he's crazy.
So he knows that he got bad intel.
He knows he got
bad intel.
Yes. So it was just, he was like, I'm not trying to suggest his judgment. I'm not saying that his decision was reasonable, but it's not unreasonable for him to say, hey, pal, like, put it this way, he was led to believe that the government of Iran is deeply unpopular in the country. We've all been told that for decades, how unpopular they are. Well, when they had the burial for the
Supreme Leader
that was unalived, it was like a multi-day process, like the whole protocols are particular for that faith. They had 45 million people attend this man's services.
45 million.
45 million people in the middle of summer in Iran in 110-degree weather, dressed in black.
While they're being attacked.
No, this was a break in the
attack.
Yes.
Because of that.
No, there wasn't enough because of that, but just because we had entered into we stopped the break, then we're into blockade, and then you got the MOU. And so when they had the services, it was a suspension in
million.
And according to the reports, even Trump turned to his advisor and said, hey, I thought you guys told me he was unpopular. There ain't going to be 45 million people at Trump's funeral.
No.
There wasn't 45 million people at Reagan's funeral. You can't get 45 million Americans to do anything other than watch the Super Bowl. Much less stand in 110-degree weather dressed in black in the middle of summer. You know what they're all yelling? One word. Revenge. That's all they want. Revenge. Because they know the American government wasn't able
to take them out.
To take the strait. That's a single point of failure. And the more they squeeze, the less money comes into the American Ponzi. And if the American money doesn't circulate into the American capital markets, it's going to crater our economy. And once we hit tank bottom, meaning we're not going to be able to pump any more of the oil that's in there for serviceable. There's going to still be oil in there, but that's the oil that's, these are huge salt caverns. And so there's going to be a baseline of oil which is tainted. We're approaching that, what referred to as tank bottom. Once that tank bottom hits, our oil price doesn't go from 80.
You mean in our reserves?
In our reserves. It's going to go from 80 to the Singapore price, 140.
And gas is going to go $10 a gallon.
It'll go $6.50. Diesel, $8.
You think that's where we're headed?
If we hit tank bottom.
How close are we to tank bottom?
Projections around mid-August.
That's now.
They say it may be, projections are projections. So let's say early September. It was supposed to be anywhere between early August, early September. So let's just give a plus or month,
We're
couple,
close.
2-3 weeks.
We're close.
Fucking desperation at this point. And the longer it goes on, the stronger their leverage becomes.
They just want to kick the can down the road. The longer they go,
the longer they delay,
and then they get to midterms.
Well, yeah, that's
a whole nother shit
whole
show.
Other issue that for some reason the media is focusing on. Like their plan had nothing to do with the midterms. They've got a 2-year plan. They're prepared to fight and hold. In fact, they just announced a couple days ago, we're not even going to negotiate with Trump. We'll talk to the next president.
Oh, they said that?
They gave their list of demands last week to Trump and said, look, we want all our money, like the $100 billion that you guys are holding of our money. We want our money. You're going to remove all the sanctions. You're going to let us trade in our oil. You're going to recognize that we control the strait. We're going to be permitted to issue tolls. They call them service fees. You're going to remove all your bases. And you're not going to ever attack again in Lebanon, us, Yemen, or Palestine.
Well, and Trump, being the fucking megalomania that he is, like, fuck you.
Of course, he said, okay, then he said, well, I'm issuing my demands. They're like, okay, we're not even talking to you for the rest of your term. So when people in the United States hear that we're negotiating with the Iranians, like, we are not talking to him again.
Until he's done.
Or until they send us our $100 billion up front. No more, we're going to take your word for it. We want $100 billion to talk, not to open the strait. To talk about opening the strait. We want the $100 billion, all the sanctions removed. So now, up until about 2.5 weeks ago, the Saudis had that safety valve on the side, going through the Yanbu area in Saudi Arabia, and they're going to go through what's called the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which is the Red Sea Strait. Well, Iran's partners, their allies, are the Houthis in Yemen. So just as pressure is increasing on the Americans because you've got all this leverage accruing. See, it's not us so much because we have our huge petroleum reserve. Japan is in a full financial crisis. The U.S. government is bailing out Japan right now because Japan imports 98% of their fuel from the Persian Gulf.
They're fucked.
Japan is our largest creditor. They have over $1 trillion worth of American bonds. They're paying the $140, $150 a barrel if they can get it. So what they have to do is they have to raise capital. To raise capital, what do they got to do? Sell our bonds. You sell our bonds, triggers a sovereign debt crisis. So now the government is saying, whoa, don't sell our bonds. We'll let you give us back our bonds and we'll loan you that money value. We'll use our bonds as collateral.
The way you're talking to me right now, Pete, is it sounds like we're fucked. Like we're fucked.
They spend less than 1% on their military than we do.
Who? Iran?
Iran.
Oh, yeah.
We are now in month 6 of a 4-day, 96-hour air campaign. You have any idea how weak of a position this is? And they're strangling our markets by depriving our allies who buy our bonds of the necessary capital. They can't invest. Japan can't be investing their money. They got to come up with money to buy the fuel. Now, if you want to go buy them for Russia, you can go to Japan, no problem. But you got to go to China.
Well, and you got to use their currency.
And then Iran says, now that we've taken control of the strait, we are charging tolls, and you have to pay for them in Chinese currency.
And the Chinese financial.
But if you want a discount, we'll give you a discount if you buy the oil in Chinese currency. So they are weaponizing our dollars. That's why we can't leave at this point. We're in. After the
let's get to that. Let's get to that point. We're in.
We're in. At some point, we're going to have to invade.
Oh, hold on. That's a whole nother. Well, hold on. So we're in.
Yeah, you can't let Iran control the world economy like that because it'll cripple us and give China the fucking power. So let's get to the second. Well, first of all, you got the second strait. Just as leverage is accruing in favor of Iran, what do? They activate their allies. The Houthis start firing missiles into the fucking Saudi oil facilities on the Red Sea side. Boom, boom, boom. Now, the Saudis gave them an opportunity. And the Houthis capitalized on it. And so right now, there's no ships coming. There's no Saudi ships allowed to come out of the Red Sea. They're blowing up Saudi ships. Remember 2 weeks ago, or about 10 days ago, Trump said any more attacks on ships is going to be resulting in us blowing up a bridge or a power station, and we're going to hold Iran responsible for any Houthi attacks. Iran's blown up like 8 or 9 ships. We ain't done nothing.
They don't give a fuck.
The Houthis are blowing up ships. They got ships on fire. The Houthis are not only stopping the Saudis from sending, that means that's another 6 million off the line. Well, Saudi Arabia is effectively not able to sell any oil. That means none of that Saudi money is coming into the United States for our bond market. That means none of that Saudi fuel is going to Asia to help Japan to get the fuel to the countries that need the fuel, strangling economic activity, strangling our access to capital. Then the Houthis escalate and they take 2 of the Iranian missiles, because these are Iranian missiles, and these are Iranians in Yemen firing the missiles. They put 2 missiles into one of the oil refineries, but they don't hit the important part. They just hit like the janitorial closet. Like they hit the complex. Well, just let them know we can put this
right there in the tank.
This is the most sophisticated oil refinery on the planet. The Houthis, in 20 minutes, if they decide to do so, can take it offline. They just put 3 or 4 rockets right into that fucking thing. So now you've got panic. Not here, because we're being shielded from all this information. But from the rest of the world, they're like,
hold on though, Pete.
They've got both. Iran's got both straits closed.
So, but we should be panicking. We should be panicking.
No, because the government can't afford to have you panic, because then it's going to be an enormous strike.
But I mean, if people were to tell the truth, like you're telling, walking us through this whole process, dating back to, our first attempt on Putin, which we didn't know about, to then getting Venezuela. The third person you got to go get is what they're going to now. Mm-hmm. They miscalculate it. And you tell us right now that we're absolutely borderline fucked on our oil reserves, and that none of this has been disseminated to the American and the standard legacy media. You're the only person that I've heard say any of this. It all makes sense. I know you're very well read,
because you have to.
And so, but hold on. So
the
only way to win is to
either cut a deal, but it's going to be a deal on their terms, which is an enormous humiliation for the United States.
Yes.
Which means you're essentially cementing the Chinese financial order.
Yeah.
It's just inconceivable this is what happened. Like the only alternative realistically is after the election, ground invasion. But that's where they activate number 2 and number 3. And we're about to get there. But first, understand they've got both straits closed.
Yep.
No Arab oil's coming out of.
They've orchestrated the first prong.
It's jackpot.
Brilliantly.
Yes, that's right. And now we're in this, we're going to hold off. Remember, we've had 7 of these times, we're going to destroy the civilization, we're going to blow up everything, we're going to do this. Why hasn't he done it?
I don't know.
A few weeks ago, he said, if any attacks on any more ships, where every ship that gets hit, we're going to take out a bridge. Why haven't they done it? Because now that he knows the first single point of failure, they realize what the second and the third are. The second point of failure, single point of failure, is every one of those oil refineries are completely unguarded. We don't have any interceptors. Remember at the beginning, they shot off their 1992 models, got us to use up all our good stuff. We're just naked. They're blowing up our bases at will. We can't defend our bases. We can't defend the Saudi oil refineries. If they fire rockets into them refineries, you'll never get oil out of there again. I mean, 5 years down the road, 10. This isn't next week we're going to fix it.
No, this needs to be.
This is an 8, 9, 10-year project to rebuild all the refineries. They've already said, if you attack our civilian infrastructure, we are taking offline. They made the threat already. Every oil refinery in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, UAE, the gas fields in Qatar, across the board, there will be no energy infrastructure left. And the missiles, Ivan, Wang Yi, Iranian engineers. So they've got the jackpot with the 2 straits, and they got the gun to our leadership's head saying, make your move, we blow up all the oil refineries. That's the base, that's the backbone of your petrodollar.
Saudi Arabia is the back
Well, right now,
of our
all the Gulf Arab countries. But if you destroy their oil infrastructure, there's no petrodollar left. They can not only crash the American sovereign debt market, they can take away dollar hegemony. Because if you remove the Gulf Arab infrastructure, there's only two places you're going to be getting oil at scale: the Americans or Russia. Half the world's going to have to go completely on Team China. So that's going to result in a massive dumping of our bonds, massive hyperinflation. The Fed's going to have to step in, start monitor. They're going to have to just print money and monetize the fucking debt. At that point, it's going to be the end of the American system as we know it. Say goodbye to the American system of somewhat free market capitalism. Say hello to the new system, which will be capitalism with Chinese characteristics. If the supreme leader of Iran wakes up tomorrow and says, you know what? I'm tired of this bullshit. Send out word to my 31 field commanders, fire for effect. In 3 hours, the American economy's dead.
That's how fragile it is. And that's how uninformed we are.
That's why you've had 7 threats. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. You didn't do it.
What do we do, bud? Like, what do we do? If I was to, like, Pete, if you were in charge.
What I would do, I think you'd have to, look, I'm not saying you don't go get the son of a bitches later on. I mean, the Iranians got something coming. But right now, we're in a jackpot.
We crow.
We
sign that deal.
A little bit of humble pie. And you make you look, once you come in with here, take a $30 billion deposit. Like, they know you're serious. Now it's, look, no tolls. We'll give you this. We'll give you this. Remember that agreement? They were having a $300 billion reconstruction fund. Like, we had no intention of giving them $300 billion.
No.
Now they're saying we want the $300 billion.
Oh, now
plus the $100 billion.
Now they can call the chip in.
Plus free passage. Plus you recognize our right to toll.
And then
so now we can try
may
to
only
make it,
toll those that trade in the U.S. dollar.
In the U.S. dollar.
And if you trade on the Chinese financial,
we'll give you a break.
Maybe no toll.
So, at this point, it's like, okay, you know what? We may have to.
That's an absolute fucking shit show.
Yeah, that's the jackpot we're in. That's why I'm so fucking infuriated that, you've got people providing the quality advice that they are. Like, hey, I'm not, again, we're not making excuses for Trump, but I'm convinced he was not told this because he is not that reckless to think that you put him in a jail. Like, he has a very high survival instinct.
Yes.
That's, if anything, he's extraordinary at his own interests, and this is not in his interest.
So how soon is this coming, you think?
Well, you hit tank bottom.
Tank bottom is scheduled for mid-August, September.
Early September. At some point, you're going to run out of oil. I mean, like, you hear people saying, well, we got Venezuela. Well, first of all, Venezuela, here in the United States, we have a problem in that most of the refineries on the Gulf Coast are not created to deal with the oil we produce in the U.S. Like, we produce a certain type of oil called sweet light crude. Well, our oil refineries use sour crude. This is the stuff that comes out of the Middle East. So although we are energy producers in that, but we export oil and import 5 million of barrels a day. So we can't take our oil and run it through our plants. The wrong oil. You can't take a 45 caliber and put it in a 9 millimeter. You have to build new plants. Now, they do have the correct one down in Venezuela, but Venezuela is a 10-year project. You got to build roads. You got to build railroads. You got a decrepit infrastructure over there.
Now, let me ask you a question, Pete. Do you think if we were to cut a deal that we have to cut that makes us look stupid or whatever deal we need to cut to get out of this bullshit, do you think we will keep score?
Oh, yeah, of course. You're going to get these sons of bitches. Like, I mean, but at this point, it's a tactical retreat. But you have to insulate it on the front end.
Yeah.
First of all, you're going to have to create alternate routes to get the oil out of the Middle East. You're going to have a tremendous amount of air defenses around those refineries.
That's where they really messed up.
So you have to have alternate transport, air defenses. We have to build up a much larger reserve. Or now that we have Venezuela, fine, but it has to be fully developed. That way we can insulate it.
Like you said, it's a 5 to 10 year project.
10-year project. Plus, don't forget, in order for us to build up our missiles, we have to get the rare earths from China. Well, China said, we're not selling you any of them. So now we're building the rare earth capacity. But the problem we have is China dominates. The U.S. produces every year 170 mining engineers. China produces 20 times that every year. So if you're going to build up a capacity, you're talking, this is a 10-year project. Now, the U.S. government's scrambling. They're taking ownership interests in different mining countries, companies all over the world. But for you to be able to build up that capacity, you're talking realistically 5 years.
So we talked about your opinion is to cut a deal, keep score in your head.
Or now, the alternate plan.
Well, I was going to ask you.
If you can engineer a CIA type toppling the government from inside.
Like an assassination.
You're not going to have a regime change, just a change of regime leadership with the understanding that we'll give you guys your money, just get the foot off the pedal on the straight.
And does it come with a caveat that you need to go back to the U.S. currency?
Well,
that's what we got ourselves in this whole fucking mess to begin with.
Now you're just talking numbers. At this point, we went from ostensibly the nuclear dust and freeing the Iranian people and ballistic missiles and proxy. Now it's just please open up the strait.
Yeah, please. And here's a whole bunch of cash. And maybe we can negotiate. You go back to the U.S. dollar. But that's going to piss off China. Well, because and they're the one that they're the one that's giving you this strength.
Well, you can make a deal with them. Say, look, your deals with China will be in Chinese currency. With us, we got your $100 billion. We'll work something out with you and give you access to the money. But
that's number two.
So then that's the third alternative is invasion.
And what happens then?
It's us walking into a circumstance where an adversary's been preparing for it for 23 years, 24 years.
It'll be bad.
Well, it's mountainous terrain. And
is it Afghanistan? Is it Afghanistan on steroids?
Well, because
they're not a bunch of goat herders. They're engineers.
Not just that about that, but don't understand. Iran is a country that's the size of Western Europe. It's got 90 million people. It's not a small country. It's enormous. And it's mountainous. And so, yes, we can go in there and try to take control of the strait. Just let's say we're going to go in for the first 200 miles. But the problem is, them rockets they fly farther than 200 miles. So if you're 400 miles away, you can still put rockets into the damn strait. Or you got a bunch of, just have teenagers out there with the hand control or the FPV drones. You don't need the sophisticated drones. You could have the 15-year-old out there and just.
So.
And so, it's going to, so it becomes like a mission creep. We're going to go in and we're going to take the coastline. Then you got to go a little bit further. Then you got to go a little bit further. Then the next thing you know, it's just a full-out fucking
You're
war.
not even close to where the supreme leader is.
Well, not just that, but they're all underground bunkers at this point. But you've got the people that want to come in they want to persuade the Kurds to come in, the Iranian Kurds.
So I think we do one of two things in closing. I think we either send the CIA guy in.
With the duffel bags of cash?
No, and to kill the supreme leader in like a hitman kind of deal.
Just pay some from the inside. If you're going to destabilize it, just people. There's a lot of people that want to be supreme leaders. There's a lot of people that want to be the president. Like you just got to find the right guy with the right incentive structure.
Or
you cut the humiliating deal.
Or we cut the humiliated deal, and we
only because it would be the momentum in Washington, from my sense, is that they want
a deal.
No, they want ground forces.
Would your opinion be that that's the worst option you could go with right now?
Well, it's the worst option for the 19-year-olds.
The people that might get drafted.
The guy's not drafted. The guys are going to go have to do the fighting. It's one thing to be some.
You think we could could make us bring back the draft?
I don't know about that. I just know that it's not going to be. Put it this way: it's going to require a lot more personnel than Iraq. Because don't forget, they have 1 million people in their army. That's not the IRG. They've got 1 million fighters, and that's not every swinging dick in Iran that they're going to load. Also,
those are just the registered ones.
Those are the soldiers. And then you've got like the hardcore guys, like the IRGC, a couple 100,000 of those guys. Those guys are, they're the regime. They're fighting to the last man. And so the smarter play is actually find someone you can do business with, duffel bags of cash. Hopefully, they can destabilize from within.
Isn't it amazing, Pete, how we've gone from a position of strength to now almost desperation? If you're to report this accurately the way you did, walk us through this entire chain of events, how it started with trying to take out Putin, going to Venezuela. Now we're in Iran. You know, and is there a fourth?
We got one more really quick. We'll do that one really quick. But here's the last part about this one. So we got the first one is the Strait. That's the slow strangle. The second one, they just firebomb all the oil refineries, the storage facilities, and the ports. Completely unprotected. That's a 8, 10, 15, 20-year reconstruction project. That catastrophic consequence for the American economy. Number 3, they destroy all the desalination plants. And so when we threatened, we hit one of their desalination plants, or Iran hit a desalination plant in Kuwait, and then the electric generation facility next to it that produces the energy necessary to run the plant, they blew that up. But they only got like a half a dozen plants in all of Kuwait.
And they already took out
They
one.
took out one of them. They said, next time we take out 2. The last time we take out all the remaining 3. 10 million Kuwaitis have to leave the country. 25 million Saudis have to leave. You're going to have mass migration. They're not going to be able to generate any money. You got to have water.
You can't live without water.
You're going to have 100 million Arabs leaving the Gulf. If tomorrow morning Iran decides, you know what, take out the fucking...
Like you said, like Supreme Leader wakes up, he had a bad night, he says, fuck it, just do it.
Just do it.
And that's how close it is.
That's how close it is. And that threat has been conveyed, saying, look, you destroy our civilian infrastructure.
They've already taken out one.
They put it right in the middle of that thing, and now Kuwait's like, hey, you know what, maybe it's time for you guys to leave. That's why when we had our plans just recently, we were going to have this new massive escalation. We were going back in. The Saudi guy, MBS, contacted Trump and said, no. You're not going to use our airspace. Don't do this. There's been even rumors that they threatened to withhold money.
Saudi.
Yeah, because Saudi can say, we'll just start selling oil.
Saudi's huge in our American economy.
Well, they're like, you're not going to jeopardize our oil refineries.
Or your bullshit.
Like, this is a great idea. We went along with it on the front end, but it's not working. Make a deal. Well, they want us to make a deal. The Saudis, of course, all the Arab states at this point want us to make a deal. In fact, yesterday's Wall Street Journal, it has an article saying that the Arab states have recognized that they're conceding Iran controls the strait. Like, that is not something...
So that's support we had that we don't have anymore?
Well, if they agreed, then if they accept...
Then what are we fighting for?
Then that's the problem. Because now
like,
it's... Well,
we don't get our oil from there. They get theirs. We don't need to... why are we fucking fighting their war? So what's number 4?
When China pulled their stunt with the rare earths, we recognized, we're vulnerable. Well, right after we lost the trade war, the United States government issues its new defense doctrine, and they put on the list of critical materials, like the critical minerals, critical industrial component type list, silver. Silver is the most important industrial metal. And we are dependent upon importing silver. Now, China, both directly and indirectly, control 70% of the production of the silver. We're vulnerable, not just with the rare earths, not just with the galliums, but we're vulnerable with silver. Now, the world's largest producer of silver is Mexico. So when we came into office in January 25, we started putting the rules in place. 50% tariffs on China, no electric vehicles.
Oh,
you're not going to come in through the back door.
Our rules into Mexico.
Into Mexico. And when we lost the trade war, we put silver on the critical list. Well, we've already made it clear to Mexico that your natural resources now belong to us. You're going to sell those resources in a manner consistent with U.S. national security interests, and you're going to price them in our currency. If not, Delta Force is going to come see you because you're all fucking narcos.
And we'll get the drug trade again. We'll
gin up the drug again.
Because you got a lot of it.
So now, because we have Mexico, we can withstand...
Is Mexico saving our ass right now?
Well, Mexico is a critical ally in our ability. Well, whether or not they're allies, they're forced to play ball. But because of that enormous pool of silver that they're able to come out of Mexico, it'll insulate us in case China embargoes us on silver. They can fuck us on the rare earths. At least we can insulate ourselves with silver. With respect to the silver production in Mexico, there's one fly in the ointment. The Mexican government agrees, don't worry, gringos, we got your back with the silver. However, the mining industry in general in Mexico has had a problem, particularly over the course of the last decade, where they have been getting extorted by drug cartels, in particular, to a lesser extent, Sinaloa, but much more so Jalisco New Generation. Jalisco New Generation, of course, is the most powerful cartel currently in Mexico. And it has been known for the better part of a decade that Jalisco has been extorting the mining interests. Now, up until the trade war with China,
we didn't care.
We didn't care because silver's a worldwide commodity. Right. The market's the market, and you're just buying it on the market.
And we don't need it to flank or insulate China.
That's right. And so, it wasn't a non-issue.
Right. It's Mexico's issue.
It's a Mexican issue. And so, but it was dramatic type of activity. And so, for instance, if you have a mining company and the problem for the silver miners is that they're located in states like Michoacan, Jalisco, Sinaloa, Zacatecas. This is core cartel territory. Like, Jalisco's dominant.
That's in their own backyard.
That's their backyard.
Yeah, huge.
And so, let's say it's a silver mining interest in Zacatecas, claims that they produced 20 million ounces of silver that year. Dug it, processed it, the entire spectrum of activity. Well, they didn't do 20 million. They did 27 million.
And cartel clipped them.
Cartel took their 25%.
So that's what the problem they have in Mexico right now with regards to
And so now you have a cartel, Jalisco New Generation, that's taxing
silver miners,
the mining interests, and they're doing it every step along the value chain. They're extorting it from the mining company. They're extorting it from the transportation company. They're extorting it from the refining company. Some of these ripoffs have been enormous. There was one case where there was reportedly 200 tons
of silver taken?
Silver and gold. So, for instance, if it was gold, you're talking a multi-billion-dollar ripoff. If it's silver, multiple $100 million ripoff. See, now in Mexico, of course, the companies aren't really losing the money. I'm convinced that, the cartel representative comes and says, hey, we need 1/3. We're taking our 1/3 off the top. Well, the company is going to be like, okay, well, they'll audit the books. 27 million? Okay, yeah, no problem. Take 9 million of our silver. 9 million ounces. Well, they tip off the guys when the trucks are transporting them. So who takes the loss? The insurance company.
Not the silver company.
So from the silver company, like the people that are getting cracked are essentially the insurance companies. So everybody's incentivized. Cartel guys are making their money. The miners are making their money. Like it's just a standard operating procedure. Well, it became an issue once silver becomes a critical metal, and once we're trapped in this trade war with China, and they demonstrated they can cripple our economy by a single point of failure with the rare earths and the critical inputs. And so what we did is we said, okay, we need all of silver coming out of Mexico, and we can't allow these
flippant
scumbag,
narcos,
these traffickers to rip off our silver, because we need that silver to be able to produce.
So do we have them on the radar? I mean, have we addressed this problem?
This problem was addressed like right in. So you had the December strike in
So this
Russia.
is like modern day issues.
Yeah. So in January, you had the Maduro strike. Then in the end of February, you had the strike against Iran. Well, in between, they decapitated the strike on the head of Jalisco New Generation, Mencho. That was a highly publicized strike in Mexico.
Did we get him?
American information and intel, and it's been reported that an American operation, like we put it together, like the team that took him just came from the U.S. to go there.
But we got him.
Yeah.
Did it stop the clipping of the silver?
Well, we don't know if it stopped the clipping, because here's the problem. Not only were they stealing the silver, but when they sell the silver, like it's not like they're they're not stealing the silver and then selling it to the Americans. They were stealing the silver, they sell it to the Chinese. So here the United States has put an embargo on goods going to China. We're not letting any Mexican silver go to China. We need every scrap for ourselves.
But you don't know what the cartel's doing.
But you have no control. While the Mexican government won't ship it, you're not going to be able to control what the cartel does. So the cartels are the ones ripping off. They're taking the 25%, 30% of the silver, turning around, selling it themselves, breaking our embargo, selling it to China.
Did we get that cartel guy and take him to a U.S. prison?
Oh, he's dead.
Oh, he's dead. Done. That's how we do things when we really want things done.
Yeah, plus now it's a shot across the bow.
To the rest of the cartel.
Stop fucking with the mining interests.
Stay in your narcos lane.
And
Quit fucking with the silver.
Get rid of the Fenny.
Right.
Stay the hell away from the mining, especially the silver.
We're actually that'll fuck with us more than
you will not allow
do all the weed, all the weed and coke you want.
Yeah.
Keep the Fenny and the silver, and we're good.
Yeah.
We'll let you fucking operate, right?
And yes, and
that's
so,
kind of how it works.
Yes,
I mean, the government. I mean, like our other podcasts that we did, Pete. You know, we've established that the Mexican government's been in the drug business
they've their eyeballs in it.
70 years.
Well, Trump said it's saying, intolerable alliance. I mean, he wasn't incorrect.
No.
It's just he revealed
it was
something.
One of those blurt outs again, wasn't it?
Well, that was a deliberate shot because that's when the Mexican government panicked. How dare he say something like that? Like, what are you talking about? Of course. But the attack on Mencho was, and again, I don't want people saying, he's just saying that now. I had a podcast 6 days before they struck Mencho. I think it was on Borderland, that platform. And then they had to call me right back after because I said, look, man, this guy's days are numbered. He's done.
And so they call you back and go, Pete, how the fuck did you...
2 weeks later, they called me back, bro. 6 days later, they got him. I said, of course. Once you
like,
understand...
Pete, are you part of the cartel, Pete?
He's like, no. They said all the comments, he's working for the CIA.
You are. You're a CIA operative.
Like a fucking plant. Like, but no, if you understand
don't you wish you were a CIA operative? Life would be way easier, wouldn't it?
It would have saved 25 years out of prison. But yeah, once you understand the threat posed by the Chinese parallel architecture, you knew what was going to happen. There had to be an attack on Russia. There had to be an attack on Venezuela. There had to be an attack on Iran. And stop them pesky cartel guys from stealing the silver. Take that guy out.
And they did.
And they took him out. Those are the four. That's the forefront strategy that the American government implemented subsequent to losing the trade war, which is why, obviously, Iran went, we've had tactical success, strategic failure. Venezuela was just success all the way across the board. Russia, very, very bad situation with Russia.
Failure.
Yeah, it was
which
a failure.
caused a shitstorm long term.
Will cause a shitstorm long term because now they made sure to repay the favor.
And
Iran is still to be determined, but it's, as of right now, you can say it's strategic failure, tactical success. And, you got to watch out because if you destroy, put it this way, the moment the troops hit, like they keep saying, we're going to invade Karg Island. They've already said, the moment your boots touch the ground.
Bye-bye Saudi Arabia desal. Bye-bye
oil
Saudi
refineries.
Arabia or oil refineries. Yeah. Hello to 100 million Arabs trying to find a new place to live.
Yeah, because you got no fucking water and no fuel and no energy coming out and more importantly, crater the Western economies.
And hello to the U.S. dollar failing.
That would be the end of dollar hegemony at that point.
You didn't hear any of this shit anywhere else except right here. Broken down so brilliantly and strategically by Pete. And it's just, Pete, in closing, the one thing that I find amazing about all of this is it's all factual, it's all researched, it's all well read, but none of it's being reported because of our legacy media. And I don't know why, but everything that you've said is so important and it's so factual, but is just not being reported. Yeah. I don't understand.
When you find yourself in a circumstance, sometimes you got to be able to back up. And at this point, it's going to require a little measure of
humble pie, so to speak.
A little humble pie. And more importantly, you have to be able to anticipate your adversary's moves. Guys, like I said, the guys with the Harvard, and we take a lot of shots at them. And they're, like I said, we're stipulating patriotic Americans, super smart, highly intelligent, no fucking street smarts. When you're going to start a war with somebody that can cripple your economy, you have to insulate yourself, stockpile on the rare earths.
Build
the fucking missile defenses around the refineries. Like, what do you people, you put 20 fucking bases in the Middle East thinking we're safe? No, you gave them targets.
Pete Rossini, my friend. God, if you're not a fan by now, I don't know what it'll take. We'll see you next episode. Subscribe, like, share, tell your buddy. Deadly Intentions show on YouTube and across all platforms. We're gaining a lot of traction and a lot of steam, and we appreciate you watching.